Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Asylum Answers show, where I'm going to answer your questions about winning asylum in America. I'm Brian Manning, so I'm an ex-asylum officer converted into an asylum lawyer. So now I have a law firm called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. And that's what I'm talking about with you today. So let me know what questions you have about winning asylum in America. But before we go there, say hello. Let me know in the chat where you're watching from. Say hello. Love to hear where this community is joining us from. So, hello on YouTube. Welcome. Hey, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Over on TikTok, glad that you're with us. Thank you for being here. LinkedIn and Facebook. We got people coming in on all of the platforms. I'm glad that you're with us today. I want to know what questions you have about winning asylum in America. And before I get to your questions, let me tell you that it's not impossible to do. It's not impossible to win asylum. Look, I know that we're getting bombarded with bad news, with news every day. It seems like, it feels like, about deportations, about new policies the Trump administration is putting in place to make it harder and harder for immigrants to get by, and specifically trying to make it harder for asylum seekers. And I know that's tough. It gets really, really old, and it could be easy to think, look, maybe I should just give up. I think it's basically impossible to win my case. It's impossible to win asylum. Why even try? But I want to assure you it's not impossible. There are people that are winning. We keep winning cases. Pretty much every day it seems like we're getting approvals for our clients where we've helped them present the strongest case possible, and they've prepared well, and they've done a great job at their interview, and they've won their asylum case. So it's not impossible, all right? Don't give up. If you're afraid of being harmed in your country and you want to pursue, build a life here in America, asylum could still be a good way to do that. It's not impossible. We keep winning cases. And if you want to talk with us about that, look, we'd love to talk with you. I'm going to put in the chat the URL, the webpage you can go to if you want to schedule a consultation with us, okay? It's called winasylum.com. Just go to the website, winasylum.com. Again, winasylum.com if you want to schedule a consultation with us to see if we think we might be in a position to help you, all right? All right, so let's see what we got going on in the chat and the various channels that we're on here. Say hello. Let me know where you're joining us from. We got on YouTube, Nadum says, good evening, sir. Good afternoon to you, Nadum. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for being with us. We've got Mihir says, hey, Mr. Manning, good afternoon from Long Island in New York. Nice. I love New York. Great town. Great town. Hello, hello. Okay, let me know. Say hello. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know what questions you have. I want to know what you want to know about winning asylum in America. So I was an asylum officer with the government, right? Actually, for 11 years. I worked for the government's two main agencies for asylum and refugee matters, the Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security. Within the Department of Homeland Security, specifically, I was with USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. That's the agency that does the affirmative asylum applications. I was at the Houston Asylum Office. And so I think that I'm able to help with my law firm to bring insights and perspectives from the other side of the desk, so to speak, from the officer's perspective, that I think are really valuable to our clients. Pichandesu says, hello from New Jersey. Nice. We got New York, we got New Jersey. What else we got? Say hello. Let me know where you're joining us from today over on YouTube. We've got LinkedIn, we've got Facebook, we've got TikTok. Hello, hello, and welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us. All right, let's see what questions we have about USA asylum. So, okay, this question on TikTok, we've got, when is it the time to be able to do my mandamus after I wait 6 years? Yep, good question. So look, the question is this: how long do you need to wait after you've applied for asylum before you can sue the government and force them to give you your interview by way of a mandamus lawsuit? Yeah, this is the famous mandamus lawsuit that I'm talking about every day, right? We do this all the time for our clients. They love it because it works really, really well. We're talking about suing the government to force your stalled asylum interview to actually happen, to move your case forward. At my law firm, we're saying 5 years. Right now, we're not taking on mandamus cases if the person has been waiting fewer than 5 years since they applied. If you're at 5 years or more after having applied, we think you're in a really good position for success. I'm not saying it's impossible to win with a shorter wait time, but our policy right now is we're taking cases only where you've waited for 5 years or more. We do this all the time. It works. We love it. Our clients love it, more importantly. So if you want to discuss this with us, this mandamus lawsuit to force your interview, look, I think it usually makes sense. I think in general, the sooner you get your chance to have your case considered and present your case and get a decision, the better your chances for success. So please, if you want to talk about this, we would love to talk with you and see if we think it might be a good fit for you. The best thing to do for you strategically, go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, and schedule a consultation there so you can talk with one of our asylum professionals about this. Schedule it today, okay? Let's talk. All right, let's see what questions we have out there. Leo Trim says, hello, is it hard for Europeans to win asylum? Good question. The question is this: is it hard for someone from Europe, like let's say a pretty developed country, to win asylum in America? And the answer is yeah, probably. It does make it harder. Look, if you're coming from a highly developed country, there is kind of this assumption that's like, wait, you're from Europe, you're from France, you're from Scandinavia, let's say, like Sweden. Things are fine there. You've got it's a rich country, you've got a strong democracy, you've got the rule of law, you should be fine there. Why do you need asylum here? So yeah, you do enter the case with that kind of sort of thinking and bias against you, but it's not impossible to win. We've seen people win, including from like up in Scandinavia, where like they rank higher than the United States on things like rule of law and democracy. So it's not impossible. It's hard. It's very hard, but it's not impossible. It really depends on you and the specifics of your case, the situation. And that's something that, for me to be able to assess, like, yeah, I think you have a real chance, or nope, I think you have basically no chance, it's something we would have to discuss in detail. I'd have to get to know the specifics of your situation. And we do that in the context of what we call an asylum strategy session. This is a very detailed consultation. It's not like a 15, 20-minute little brief chat. It's a 50-minute, almost 1 hour consultation where we really get to know you, we get to know your case, and we do a deep analysis to tell you whether we think we can help you. If we think that we're in a position to help you, we're going to explain how. We're going to tell you concretely what the steps are that we will take to give you the best possible chance of securing your future in America through asylum. Okay? All right. Interesting question. Oh, nice. Mihir says, thank you for doing live stream and tutorials on the channel because it helped me a lot to win my asylum case. Nice. Thank you. Look, for everyone who's joining us today on TikTok and LinkedIn and Facebook, go to YouTube. All right. Look, YouTube is where I have all my best stuff. All right. I've got some really detailed trainings and tutorials about all kinds of stuff that's going to help you to do a better job in your case. And Mihir is kind enough to mention here on YouTube that the live streams and the tutorials helped him or her to win asylum. That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Congratulations. That's great news. Sarah says, do you think, hey, Brian from New York. Awesome. Do you think the religious belief of an asylum officer could affect their decision? I'm afraid because I have a religious asylum claim and I'm an atheist. Interesting question. So look, the question is this: might your claim that is based on religion, or actually based on the fact that you're an atheist, could that be prejudiced by the fact that you happen to have an officer interview you who is a religious person? Look, yes, in the sense that we are human. Everyone brings with them to their analysis and to every interaction their own worldview, their own background. And so if you get matched with an asylum officer who is very religious, and you are not religious, you're an atheist, it's possible they might like look down on that or think kind of negatively about it. But I mean, so it could have an impact. But the good news is it won't have a formal impact. I mean, they're not supposed to bring their religion into the actual analysis, into the decision-making process. So it could sort of subconsciously or under the surface sort of affect things, but at least not formally. It's not like a strike against you. And you definitely can win asylum as an atheist. And look, I mean, there are a lot of religious people who agree that you should be able to win asylum as an atheist, even though they're not an atheist. They still believe in religious liberty, religious freedom, and that no one should be persecuted because they are not religious or not the right kind of religion. So look, I wouldn't worry. It's not something you need to really worry about before your interview. That's the least of your concerns. Okay, you need to think about preparing. Okay, the preparation is really the key to success in your interview. Okay, and we in my law firm, we offer a service that is just the preparation. Look, make no mistake, I think the best thing that you can do, the best chance for success in your case, is to hire us from the very beginning before you even apply. Have us help you apply, have us help you with the preparation, have us help you build the case and do the documents and the paperwork, and then do the preparation and represent you during the interview. But we understand that that's just not a possibility. It's not realistic for certain people, both because of, maybe it's because of time, but often it's because of money, right? Someone, can't afford to hire us for that whole thing. We charge between $10,000 and $17,000 to do like the whole asylum case. And that's just beyond the reach of some people. It's a lot of money. But what we can offer people is the most important aspect at a fraction of that cost. And the most important aspect by far is the preparation, okay? Because look, what you say at your interview or your hearing in court is what matters the most, okay? The documents, like what you say in your application form, the declaration you might submit, any evidence you submit, and any legal brief that a lawyer might submit on your behalf, all that stuff is good. Having a lawyer represent you during your interview is good and helpful. All that stuff is good and it can help you. But it's not as important as the preparation. What you say at your interview is what really matters the most, and how you prepare will affect what you say and how you perform and the kind of job you're able to do on the day of your real interview. So look, if you could only choose one thing to get expert help with, make it the preparation. We do the preparation for people. We offer it as a standalone service through what we call the mock asylum interview experience. And now this is an experience whereby you get a 2-hour mock interview with an asylum lawyer. First, for 20 or 30 minutes or so, we're going to kind of give you some context and background, talk through some logistics and practical things, and also some strategy stuff about what you should be trying to achieve with your testimony. And then we're going to do, for an hour and a half, we're going to do a mock interview where you're going to experience everything you'll experience on the day of the real interview. And this is crucial. This is absolutely key, because most people go into the real interview not knowing what to expect. They don't know what's awaiting them, and they're not prepared, and it's much harder than they expect, and they do not do a good job because of this. With our practice interview, our full-scale mock interview, you will go into the real interview, I truly believe, confident and ready and prepared to do a great job. Because look, you already know what kind of questions you're going to get. You know what it feels like to be in this position. You know what the different procedures are for the day. All of this gives you confidence, it gives you familiarity, and it prepares you to do a great job. So we do a 2-hour mock interview session. And then a day or 2 or 3 later, we do a separate session that lasts 30 minutes that we call a debrief session, where we give you feedback about how you did. And we tell you how you might be able to do better, how you might be able to tell your story in a clearer, more impactful way. And we just give you all of our best tips, okay? So those are the core pillars of what we call the mock asylum interview experience. There's more. We do some other things to help you prepare, but that's the core. Those are the core pillars. The 2-hour mock interview session, and then the 30-minute debrief session with an asylum lawyer, okay? But look, not everyone qualifies for this. We need to talk with you first. We need you to do a consultation with us first. That's the first step, because not everyone qualifies. We need to get to know you and your situation, your case, and see if we think that we're in a position to help you. If we think that you have a chance to win, then we're going to think that we could help you to increase your chances through the mock asylum interview experience. But we have to make that determination in the context of a consultation first. So if you want to talk with us in a consultation, we would love to talk with you. You can schedule that at winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com to schedule a consultation. You can go there now, okay? So yeah, that's where you can go to talk with us. It's me, Z says, do you do multiple mocks? You just do one mock interview? Yeah. So it's me, Z. What I was explaining just now is that like it's a 2-hour session and then a 30-minute follow-up session, like a debrief session. Okay. Alrighty. Hello. Is European blood feud accepted as an asylum reason in the U.S.? Thanks a lot for what you do. You're the best. Thank you for the kind words, Leo Dream. I appreciate it. I don't really know what you mean by European blood feud. I'd have to get a lot more information about what you mean by that and what exactly has happened and why you're afraid, to be able to tell you whether I think you have a chance for success on that kind of basis. Okay. How long does it take to get an EAD and a social security number for an asylum case? Right now, the question is, how long is it going to take you to get your work permit and your social security card based on your pending asylum case? Well, look, you can apply for your work permit and social security card. You do that both on like the same form. You just check a box and say, yes, I want a social security card too. You do that 150 days after you've applied for asylum. 150 days after the government accepts your asylum application, you're eligible to apply for the work permit and social. The government, USCIS, cannot actually approve that for another 30 days. They can't approve it until your asylum case has been pending 180 days. But once they hit that 180-day mark, usually they approve it pretty much right away, and you get it within a few days or at least a couple or a few weeks after that. So usually, if you apply at 150 days, most people have their work permit card in their hand, approved and in their hand, 6.5 months maybe after they've applied for asylum. If you apply right at 150 days, yeah, a little over 6 months, 6.5 months, maybe maximum 7, you should have your work permit in your hand. All right. Hey Brian, I'm waiting on asylum. My girlfriend's here on a B2 visa. We're getting married soon. Can I add her to my case online? Yes, after you get married, you can make a request to the asylum office to add her as what's called a dependent in your case. The process for that's a little bit tricky. It varies by the different asylum offices, and they often change their, I think, arbitrarily change their requirements for what you have to do, what you have to give them to add your spouse. But eventually, yeah, you'll be able to get it done. All right. ABD says, hey Brian, does someone who worked for a company in Iraq that is contracted with U.S. forces have a good asylum case? Good question. The question is this. Do you have a good chance to win an asylum case? If you're someone who worked in Iraq for a contractor that was working with the U.S. armed forces, or maybe Western or maybe NATO forces, you might. Look, it's not as simple as me being able to say, oh, look, yeah, just because you worked for, a contractor that was working with NATO or the U.S. military, oh, yeah, you definitely got a good case. It's not that simple. I need to know more. I need to know the facts of your particular situation. I need to know who you're working for, what happened. We need to ask you a lot of questions to be in a better position to tell you what kind of chance we think you have for success. And we do this analysis in the context of an asylum strategy session or a consultation where we get to know you and your case, and we tell you whether we think we can help. And if we think we can help, we're going to explain to you how we're going to do that exactly, concretely, what the steps are we're going to take to give you the best possible chance of securing your future in America through asylum. Okay? That's what we will do, and that's what we want to talk about in the context of an asylum strategy session. All right? Salazar says, have you seen the news for asylum-based green card interview criteria? It was shared on the USCIS website today. No, I haven't. I'll check that out after this live. Thanks for mentioning it. My guy Badru says hello from Massachusetts. Badru is someone who is a faithful follower and member of this asylum seeker community who often chats on these lives. Badru, is there anything, let me ask you this. Badru, do you have any reason to believe that a mock asylum interview, a practice asylum interview, is something that would be helpful to asylum seekers? I'm just curious, Badru, if you have any thoughts on that. I would welcome your thoughts on that. If you have anything to say, any thoughts on that in the chat. All right. What do you think about Said says, what do you think about the chances of Afghan asylum seekers with strong cases, especially now that the new Trump administration has canceled TPS for Afghans? Yeah, good question. The question is this. Does someone from Afghanistan who is a legitimate case, who has really been through some things and has real reasons to be afraid of being harmed in their country, do they have a chance to win asylum now that it looks like the Trump administration is taking away TPS from everyone and deporting as many people as possible? Yeah, you still have a chance to win. Look, we've helped a lot of people from Afghanistan, and I do think that it's still going to be possible to win. It's frustrating and it's worrying, to be honest with you, that the administration is taking this action against Afghans, especially against a lot of these people who have been key allies and worked with and for the United States government in dangerous conditions for many years. It's a shame, honestly. Do I think you have a chance to win your case? Yeah. Well, let me look. I need to talk with anyone about their particular circumstances to assess the strength of their case. But I can tell you that there's a lot of Afghans that I do think will still win their cases, even under the current difficult circumstances. Okay. All right, that's what I think about that. Let's see. All right, we've got a comment or question on YouTube that says, can someone's psychological issues be used as evidence of past persecution? If yes, how does the officer believe the cause is related to persecution rather than just some random other things? Good question. The question is this: can a psychological report or some kind of letter or report from a mental health provider be helpful in your asylum case to show that what you've endured in the past is serious enough to constitute persecution? Yes, definitely. But a follow-up question is, how does the asylum officer know that it's related to the persecution that you suffered, the harmful acts that were on account of a protected characteristic, rather than just some other kind of issues that caused by things that have nothing to do with persecution on account of a protected ground? Look, hopefully the person who writes the letter for you or does the analysis or exam for you can link the two together, can say, the person told me about these traumatic experiences they endured, and now they have these mental health disorders or symptoms and issues, challenges, and I think that it's an outgrowth or related to what they endured in their country. I mean, they can say that. It's not definitive proof that, yes, it's 100% clear that is the case, but it's persuasive. If a mental health provider, a doctor, a therapist, a social worker says that they think, in their professional opinion, that the things that you described to them that you've gone through of acts of persecution caused the mental health challenges you're facing, that's pretty persuasive, and the officer will probably be like, yeah, that makes sense. If they're saying it, it's probably true. It can't hurt. It can only help. Okay, so yeah, it can definitely help to show that what you've been through was sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution, because it caused these maybe ongoing mental health challenges that you've been facing. That just shows how severe it was, and it is itself, psychological harm is harm for purposes of the past persecution analysis. So yeah, it can definitely be helpful. Okay, so yeah, I hope that helps. All right. Okay, let's see what Jamal says. I'm from a persecuted tribe, and they're being killed daily in Somalia. I worked in the police in a money laundering case, and now I'm receiving death threats. I have conversations and videos of death threats on WhatsApp. Now my asylum's pending. What are my chances of winning my case? Jamal, I'd have to know a lot more. I hope you'll call us to do a consultation, or rather than calling us, it's best to just go and schedule this online at winasylum.com, winasylum.com, because I need to know more, right? Like I need to know what are the threats about? What are they saying? Like what are they saying, or what are the circumstances that indicate what their motives are in targeting you for harm and threatening you? Okay, is it, you said you work for the police, and that there was a money laundering case, and now you're receiving death threats. Well, did you expose government corruption, or did they think that you might expose government corruption, and they don't like that? If so, that can count. That counts as expression of a political opinion. Whistleblowing or exposing government corruption is considered under U.S. asylum law to be an expression of political opinion. And so if that's the reason they're persecuting you, and we can prove that, or at least convince the officer of that, that would be persecution on account of a protected ground, your political opinion. You also mentioned you're from a persecuted tribe. That could also, depending on the facts, we might also have an argument here about persecution on account of your race, or possibly even your nationality. So it's one of these things where we really need to get to know you and your case and talk about it in a lot more detail to be able to then tell you what the hook is. In other words, what the nexus is to a protected ground, which protected ground we think we can win under, if not multiple ones, in your case. Because remember, to win asylum, it's not enough just to show that you've been persecuted or that you're at risk of persecution in the future. Rather, you also have to convince the asylum officer that the motive behind this, that the thing motivating the bad guys, is the fact that you possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law. Those are your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or something called membership in a particular social group. Okay. So it's a little bit tricky. It requires a lot of analysis and a lot of careful crafting and building of your case, and a lot of careful preparation before your interview or hearing. Okay. Pedro Pablo Gomez says, can you please make a summary of what happens in the master hearing in the court, what to expect there? Thanks. Yep, I'll be happy to do that. Look, I've got a video, Pedro. I'm not sure if you're a Spanish speaker, but if you are, I've also got a YouTube channel called Ha Sido Aprobado, where I've got YouTube videos. I've got a playlist that's about immigration court. And I've got a video about this. What happens in a master calendar hearing? The question is this. So what happens at a master calendar hearing in immigration court? First of all, weird name, right? Master calendar hearing. Look, this is a preliminary hearing. It's usually administrative in nature. It's not the one at which you actually explain your asylum case and fight your case. Rather, basically, the judge is going to explain to you what your rights are in immigration court, and they're going to ask you to respond to the things the government is saying about your case in what's called the notice to appear. This is the document that says basically, hey, either you came here without permission or you came here with permission but it expired, so therefore under the law you're eligible to be deported and we want to deport you. The judge is going to talk with you about that document and see whether you admit those things or not. And then they're going to set a date for your individual hearing. That's one where you fight your case. Now look, usually this first hearing, the master calendar hearing, is straightforward and simple and lasts like 5 minutes, but sometimes surprises come up. Sometimes things that can happen that can impact actually the outcome of your case. So it is definitely best to have a lawyer. Now look, you may actually be able to get this master calendar hearing canceled and skipped altogether and go straight to an individual hearing. I usually recommend that we try to do that. For strategic reasons, that is usually the best thing to do. So you may want to think about trying to get a lawyer to try to get this master calendar hearing canceled altogether. We'd be happy to talk with you about that. I hope you'll reach out to us. Okay? All right. A and B, can someone apply for a religious asylum now at the Mexico-USA port of entry? I don't know. Look, things change on the border every day, from day to day. I can tell you this, there's hardly anyone getting in, including to seek asylum recently. I think the chances of you getting in to be able to seek asylum are probably pretty low. And remember, it's pretty dangerous too, that area in Mexico, okay? All right. Nova says, as an asylee, is it okay to travel overseas with a travel document and a clean background? I don't know. Good question. The question is this. Is it okay for you to travel overseas if you're an asylee, someone who's already won asylum, and you have a travel document, which for an asylee is called a refugee travel document? Is it safe, or are you at risk of like not being let back in when you come back? Look, there's always some risk. There's always at least some risk when you leave the country with anything other than U.S. citizenship. As an asylee, how much risk is there if you have a refugee travel document? You know, given that we're in the second Trump administration where they're trying to make life as difficult as possible for immigrants and kicking out as many as possible, I think the risk is pretty low. I think it's probably okay. Look, you should not go back to your home country, the country from which you sought asylum. Don't go back there. But if you don't go back there and you go back for a short amount of time, I would recommend not more than a few weeks. I think the chances for anything bad happening or risk of not being let back in, things like that, is pretty low, such that I would probably do it. Look, I would say I would definitely do it if I were an asylee and I had a refugee travel document. I would go somewhere other than my own country for an emergency purpose, like if you've got a sick family member and you're going to meet up in a third country and you need to see them, some kind of emergency, for sure. Would I do it just for vacation? Probably not. Even though I think the risk is pretty low, it's probably not worth it. In my opinion, for me, it wouldn't be worth it just for like vacation. Okay? That's what I think, at least. But, you know, yeah. Okay. What do we have now? Do I get a conditional green card after I pass an asylum interview, says Mary? No. No. When your asylum is approved, you're eligible to apply for your green card. But you have to first win asylum, and then you have to apply for a green card, and it has to get approved. And then it's not a conditional green card that you get as an asylee. It's not the conditional green card that you mentioned is something that someone gets based on marriage when they have under certain circumstances. But it's the green card that an asylee gets is not conditional. Okay. Con says it's almost 8 months since my interview in Los Angeles office. Is it normal? You mean you haven't gotten a decision in 8 months? So look, yeah, the question is this: is it normal to wait several months to get a decision after your asylum interview? This person who asked the question has been waiting 8 months. It's not uncommon. I'm not surprised to hear that you waited 8 months. Look, it frequently takes several months. 8 months is starting to get really long, though, right? You should first reach out to the asylum office, send an email, and call them and say, hey, just want to let you know I'm still waiting on my decision. I'm happy to provide the officer with any documents or do anything else they need and able to conclude my case to make a decision. Let me know if I can provide anything. By the way, could you please let me know when I can expect to get the decision? I would do that. And if sometimes that works, rarely, but sometimes that's sufficient to move the case forward, okay? Because it just puts it back on their radar. It just reminds the officer, oh yeah, I've got this case that's been waiting for a decision for 8 months. I guess I'll prioritize that one now. Sometimes that works. But look, if that doesn't work, I want to know when you applied for asylum. If you applied for asylum 5 years ago or more, then I think you should consider suing the government to force the decision through a mandamus lawsuit. The mandamus lawsuit is used not just to force interviews, but also you can use it to force a decision after the interview. What we're looking at for this is the time between your application for asylum and now, not the time between your interview and now, the time between your application and now. If that's 5 years or more, you should consider suing to force your decision. Okay? Michael says, hi, Brian. Do people still have a chance when they apply for defensive asylum at the court? The question is this. Is there still a realistic chance of winning an asylum case in immigration court? Yeah, there is. Look, many people in immigration court came to the U.S. southern border without a visa, right? There's also people in immigration court who's had an interview with USCIS and their case was referred to immigration court, but I want to talk specifically about people who came without a visa. If you came after a certain date in May of 2023 to the border without a visa, you've got an uphill climb. There's a policy in place that says that that makes it really hard to get asylum. there's some exceptions to this general rule that makes it almost impossible to get asylum if you came after that date. But it's not impossible. There are exceptions. If you came before that date, you have a better chance of getting asylum. Look, at the end of the day, what I can tell you is it's hard. The approval rates are low, and probably going to get lower every month that Trump is in power. But it's not impossible. We keep winning cases, including in immigration court, so it's not impossible. Don't give up hope. You got to focus on putting together the best case possible. Give yourself the best possible chance to win your case, okay? That's what I recommend. Nagio123 says, I submitted a service request 2 days ago when they responded to it. Thank you. Oh, okay, wait. I don't remember your first question, Nagio. Did I answer your first question? I don't even remember seeing your name on here. Yeah, not sure. I don't know. Let me know if you want to, if you have a follow-up, or if I didn't address your question, let me know. Timotheus Tara says, hi Brian, if I have a past persecution like mental abuse from my dad, not with the government, will that qualify for asylum? Good question. Well, first of all, if that's your situation, I'm really sorry to hear about that. That's really tough. I'm sorry that this has happened to you, and I hope you're getting the help you need to recover as much as you can. Okay. So the question is this: can psychological or mental abuse that you suffered from a parent qualify for asylum? So look, we've got a couple issues here. One is the fact that it's a private citizen and it's a family member. It's a private citizen and not like an employee of the government, right? That's one issue. The other issue is, can just mental abuse without physical abuse be sufficiently severe harm to count as persecution? And ultimately the answer is yeah, this kind of case does have a chance to win. Look, the government issue is probably going to be okay if we're talking about mental abuse, that psychological abuse that you endured as a child, as a minor, because then you're not really expected to like try to go to the police and get them to solve it. And in any event, in many countries, we could point to country conditions information that shows that even if you had gone to the police as a child to report your parents for this, it probably would have been futile, probably would have been useless. And so the private actor family member thing is probably not a problem. The mental abuse thing is also not necessarily a problem. The fact that there was not physical abuse. Look, I mean, cases are stronger where there is physical harm, but you can win based just on psychological harm if it was pretty severe, if it impacted you severely. And given that it happened when you were a child, does help you to make that argument that it was severe and sufficiently severe to constitute persecution. So it's one of these cases that's probably, it's kind of tough to win, but it's definitely sounds like it's probably not impossible. But of course, we want to talk with you in detail about your situation to give you a better sense of what we think your chances for success are, okay? I'm sorry to hear about what you've gone through, okay? Okay. It's me, Z says, if your client receives annoyed, what are your success rates in rebuttals? Good question. The question is this: what are your chances of winning your case after you receive a NOID? We're talking about a notice of intent to deny. We call it a NOID, N-O-I-D, like NOID, like sounding it out like one word. This is where you have legal immigration status. Maybe you have TPS, maybe you still have your tourist status, student status. When USCIS makes a negative decision in your asylum case, they don't deny you yet. They don't send your case to immigration court. Rather, they say, here's a letter where we're explaining our reasons for thinking that you do not qualify for asylum. You have 16 days to respond and try to change our minds. You have to respond in writing and try to tell them why they're wrong and why you should get asylum. It's very hard to win this. I would say overall approval rates by USCIS after they've issued a NOID are probably under 5%, probably under 3%, honestly. In my law firm, I don't know. I have not tracked this statistic. I don't know what our success rate is, but I can tell you we've won some. I can think of 3 that we've won actually in the last few weeks even, that we've won that one of them I thought, yeah, we should win this one. There was a couple other ones where it was pretty close. I was like, I don't know, it's going to be tough, because generally it is tough. They do not easily change their mind. It's hard to get them to concede that they were wrong and to change their mind. So look, overall, I got to tell you, it's not a high chance for success, but it's not impossible. Okay. All right. Yata says, I mistakenly did not include my child in my asylum application. Please, can it be corrected, and how, please? So the question is this. What do you do if you forgot to include in your asylum application a family member, like a spouse or a child? Maybe you just didn't list them, you didn't include their data for whatever reason. How do you fix that if you want to fix it? Well, first of all, you should fix it. How do you do it? You're going to have to amend your asylum application. I would literally fill out a new application form and just include the person, put their data. Remember, you need to check the box. You have to indicate by checking one of two boxes whether you want them to be included as a dependent in the case or not. So think about that. And you will need to provide proof of the qualifying relationship, which is to say, for a spouse, you have to provide proof of, you have to include your marriage certificate. For a child, you have to include the child's birth certificate, and you should provide a cover letter that says, hey, I forgot to include my spouse as a dependent or my child as a dependent or to list them in the case. I want to list them now. I'm supplying you with an amended asylum application that includes their info, and here's the birth certificate or marriage certificate as well. That should be enough. Sometimes they'll hassle you and be like, oh no, we need this other document, but that's usually sufficient to add a family member as a dependent. Okay, you should do that now. Don't wait. You should do it now. All right. Khan wants to know if is it okay to travel to Pakistan as an Afghan if you have a refugee travel document? Travel? No, I wouldn't do it. No, I wouldn't travel at all as an Afghan. If your country, listen, yeah, no. If let me just say this: if a country is subject to a U.S. travel ban, you should not leave the United States, even if you have a refugee travel document, or if you're an asylum seeker and you have advanced parole, you should not leave the United States if your country is subject to a U.S. travel ban. All right. Look, for those of you who have just recently joined, I'm Brian Manning. I'm a former asylum officer converted to an asylum lawyer. So my law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. That's what we do all day, every day as asylum. We don't do immigration based on family cases. We don't do it based on employment or investment. We do asylum all day, every day. And I think we're pretty good at what we do. We've got a lot of hardworking, smart, sophisticated people who care about their jobs, who care about their clients, and we've had a lot of success. And if you think that you might want help with your case, we'd love to talk with you. The first step is to do a consultation with us. We want you to talk with one of our asylum professionals. We want to get to know you, get to know your case, your situation, and tell you whether we think that we're in a position to possibly be able to support you, to help you. If we think that we are, we're going to explain to you how, concretely, what those steps would be to give you the best possible chance of winning your case, of securing your future in America through asylum. So look, go now and schedule. You can schedule right now this consultation by going to winasylum.com, 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 and that's where you can schedule this asylum strategy session right now with one of our asylum professionals. All right, let's see. What questions do you have about winning asylum in America? Alrighty, so the LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, how are you guys doing? For everyone who's not watching this on YouTube, I recommend that you go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where I've got all my best stuff, okay? YouTube, you will find playlist with extremely detailed training videos. What I've done is some of them are 2 or 3 hours long, okay? Some of them are very, very, very detailed about all kinds of stuff that you need to know if you want to give yourself the best possible chance to win asylum, okay? So you go to YouTube and you can search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's the name of my law firm, Political Asylum Lawyers, and it's also the name of our YouTube channel. It's Political Asylum Lawyers. All right, go to YouTube, subscribe to that channel, hit the bell notification so that you get updates when when we post new videos or go live. Okay, winasylum.com. Okay, so good question. We got a question here about the mandamus lawsuit, and the question is this. I know that suing the government is a good way to, force my asylum case forward, to push it forward, to get my interview finally scheduled after years of waiting. But the question is, can suing actually hurt your underlying asylum case? Like, will the fact that you've dared to sue the mighty U.S. government make them mad and make them want to take revenge on you and, possibly prejudice your case or make them want to deny you because you sued? I completely get that line of thinking. It's totally reasonable to think that might be a thing. The good news is, no, I don't think it will hurt your case at all. Listen, I tell you this with full confidence as a former asylum officer and now as an asylum lawyer. I do not think that suing will in any way hurt your underlying case or your chances for getting asylum. Okay, it's just not, I just don't think it's happening. We do this all the time. I think we filed maybe 200 of these in the last couple of years, and I have seen zero indication that it is negatively impacting our success rate or our client's chance for winning their actual underlying asylum case. It's just not happening, I don't think. Okay, so if you're sick of waiting, if you want to get confidence and certainty around your future, if you want to move on with your life, put this phase behind you and move forward with confidence, you should consider suing in a mandamus lawsuit if you've been waiting for 5 or more years. So if you want to talk about that, we would love to talk with you and get to know you and your case and tell you whether we think this is a good fit for you. Schedule a consultation right now at winasylum.com, 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 okay? winasylum.com. Motion to dismiss, Bahi wants to know. You're not going to win many motions to dismiss these days. In fact, you probably don't want to win a motion to dismiss these days if you want to win asylum. Look, if you, under the Biden administration, it was pretty easy in a lot of cases to win, to get a case dismissed in immigration court for various reasons. The Trump administration is not going along with that. Their prosecutors are not agreeing to dismiss, and if they don't agree to dismiss, the judge usually doesn't agree to dismiss. Sometimes there's problems with like a notice to appear where it is defective, and you can make arguments to the judge that, like, look, this process is improper, this case should be terminated, and they'll terminate it, they'll dismiss it. But when that happens, you're at greater risk of being arrested and detained and possibly put into expedited removal proceedings. So if you want to win asylum, for most people, I think the best thing to do is stay in immigration court. Don't try to get your case dismissed. Stay in immigration court and just pursue your claim, okay? For most people, I think that's the best way forward. Yeah. All right. Nobody says, your question got truncated. It says, does the time you leave your country matter compared to the time you, and then it stops. What did you want to say with that? Does the travel ban include H-1B visas? I'm pretty sure that it does. I'm pretty sure it includes everything. But look, Hods, I am not the person to ask for business related status stuff. Like, that's not my thing. We do asylum all day, every day. So if you want to get information about anything related having to do with a business-based status, you should talk to an immigration lawyer who focuses on that. Okay? But thank you for the comment. It says, thanks for your videos, very informative. You're welcome. My pleasure. Okay. So Yata says, can withholding of removal be changed into asylum? This is an interesting question. Good question. The question is this. What happens if the judge in immigration court gives you withholding of removal? So that means they enter a deportation order. They've denied your asylum case and they've given you a deportation order. However, they grant you something called withholding of removal, which is not as good as asylum, and these days it's not all that safe because you could still get deported to a third country, which is what something the Trump administration is actually doing. They're deporting some people with withholding of removal to just another country. What can you do? You can appeal. You can appeal. Look, some people think that an appeal of the judge's decision is only possible where they give you nothing, or they make a deportation order and they don't give you any kind of relief. But you can also appeal the fact that the judge denied your asylum claim. Even though they gave you withholding, you can appeal the asylum part of the decision. And you probably should, because like I said earlier, withholding of removal is not worth much right now when the Trump administration is deporting people to other countries other than their own country. Because withholding of removal only says, look, you cannot deport this person to their home country. It doesn't say you can't deport them to somewhere else. And the Trump administration is frequently deporting people to somewhere else. So it may make sense to appeal the asylum denial. You should probably talk with an asylum lawyer about that. Remember, you only have 30 days to do the appeal after the date of the judge's decision. So you got to act quickly, okay? Keep that in mind. All right. Oh, sorry, Vahe, you were talking about a motion to dismiss in a mandamus lawsuit. My bad. Look, you said, what happens when USCIS files a motion to dismiss for mandamus cases? What did you ask before that? You said, let me go back up to your question. How long does it take if you have now for motion to dismiss? All right. So the question is this. If the government files a motion to dismiss after you sue them in a mandamus lawsuit, what happens next, and how long is it going to take to resolve that, and how does that work? Look, if you've been waiting for a long time for your asylum interview, then there's a good chance they will not file a motion to dismiss. Instead, they'll just want to negotiate with your lawyer, and eventually they'll give you the interview and a decision without filing a motion to dismiss. But if you haven't been waiting that long, like what we've been seeing lately is anything under 5 years, a 5-year wait or less, or a wait of less than 5 years, there's a pretty decent chance they will file a motion to dismiss. What happens when they do that? You got to fight it. You got to argue about the motion to dismiss. And if you survive that, if the judge agrees with you that no, the case shouldn't be dismissed, sometimes after that decision from the judge, the government says, okay, we give up, here's your interview. But not always. Sometimes they keep fighting it, wanting to fight out the whole case. If they want to fight out the whole case, it'll probably take at least a year to get a decision. If they give up after the motion to dismiss, then you're talking about getting an interview maybe a few months after you've sued. If they don't fight at all, you're talking about anywhere from a month after you've sued to maybe several months from the time until you actually get your interview. But it's less time than it would have been if they had filed a motion to dismiss, or less time than it would have been if you had to keep fighting after a motion to dismiss. Okay. Awesome. Ibraz Mahmoud says, hi, Brian. Hey, Brian, I applied for a mandamus and finally got my interview scheduled on August 14th after waiting for over 5 years. Shout out to your whole team for helping me out. Looking forward to mock interview. Awesome. So Ibraz is obviously one of our clients. You can see this on YouTube. For those of you on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, go to YouTube. That's where my best stuff is. The YouTube channel is called Political Asylum Lawyers. Go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. Irbaz Mahmoud is saying that we helped them file for the mandamus lawsuit. They've been waiting for over 5 years. We filed a mandamus lawsuit, got the interview. It worked. Look, I'm going to say something here that I need to preface by saying past results do not guarantee future results or future success, future outcomes. Having said that, I'm happy to tell you we've filed, I think, probably close to 200 of these mandamus lawsuits in the last couple of years. We haven't lost one yet. The government has only challenged us and done a motion to dismiss where we have to actually fight it out a handful of times, maybe, 4, 7, 8 times. And even in those cases where they've fought us, we haven't lost yet. There's still, I think on one or two of them, after we won the motion to dismiss element, the government came back and was like, "Oh, we give up. Here's the interview." But there's a couple more where we're having to fight it all the way, to the end, probably for a long time. It'll probably take a long time. It'll probably take a year or more. But that's out of 170 cases, 200, maybe 210. I'm not sure exactly when we filed, but it's a lot. So the point I'm trying to make is this is a powerful tool. It works really, really well. We've had a ton of success with it. We've helped people like Earbaz, who just commented saying that we got their interview through a mandamus lawsuit after they've been waiting for 5 years. It's a powerful tool. Our clients love it because it works really, really well. If you're sick of waiting for your interview, you want to get your interview so that you can move on with your life with confidence and certainty about your future and about your security and about, being able to know that you can stay here and build the life here that you want to build, then we should talk about suing the government to move your case forward. We love doing this. Earbaz loves that we did it for his case. And if you want to talk with us about this, you can schedule a consultation to learn more at winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Okay. All right. All right. So nice, very nice. Thank you for that. Okay, that's going to be all for today. I'm Brian Manning, and I'm an asylum lawyer. My law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers. We're based in Texas, but that doesn't matter because we help people all over the country. It doesn't matter where you are. We help people all over the United States. We can help you at pretty much any point in your journey, whether you're thinking about applying or whether you've already applied or whether you already have an interview scheduled coming up and you're like, I need help quick. We may still be able to help you. There may still be a lot of things that we can do to give you a better chance, to maximize your chances for asylum success. So if you want to talk with us, we'd love to talk with you in a consultation, in an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know your case, see what's going on, and tell you whether we think we're in a position to help you. If we think that we might be, we're going to tell you how. We're going to give you concrete steps of our asylum action plan, this framework that we're going to use to give you the best possible chance to secure your future in America through asylum. All right? That's it for today. Have a great Friday, a great weekend. I look forward to seeing you all soon online on this show, the Asylum Answers Show. Have a great weekend. Until next time, I'm Brian Manning. Later, guys. Take care. Bye, guys. Bye.